Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome back to FaerieQuest and another episode of Fairy Talk, or as I like to say, Faerie Chat. And we are going to use the cards again to find out if we can get a fairy to come through the door here and have a little chat with us. Due to the nature of the cards, I do have a pre-plan set of questions so that the cards and the fairy know what to respond to. So after shuffling the first question, or the first thing in my mind, okay, is for the fairy to let us know if he or she is male or female. And again, it does not matter whether they're male or female. However, it makes conversation or makes things a little easier for us to have a conversation if we know male or female, because we say he or she, that kind of thing. So I'm going to shuffle the cards here and then see what we have. The questions will be very much the same as the last Fairy Talk, Fairy Chat that we had, and we'll see if we get a different fairy to come through that door. So I think that's probably plenty of shuffle in here, so let's get the cards laid out. And again, first question here is male or female, please show with the first card. That's what I say in my head. So we have a stork, and that is the Queen of Hearts. So we know that the fairy coming through the door is female. So we are going to lay out those three cards. And the next question, using the second row, is asking the fairy to describe their appearance. Now remember, this, when I say fairy, it's F-A-E-R-I-E, because to me that means it can be any species. And I suppose I could say fae also. So let's see, what do we have here? We have a snake. We have a fish. And we have a scythe. And for those who don't know what a scythe is, oftentimes it's used to like cut wheat in a field, or used to be. I'm sure they probably have machines for that now. Maybe not. Anyway, so when we look at the snake and we're thinking about appearance, we're asking the fairy, what do you look like? And this could look kind of scary if you're thinking scales, and very sharp. No, that's not what we're doing. Anyway, the snake is showing somebody who has piercing blue eyes. Just beautiful piercing blue eyes. They can look at you and you know they're looking at you. She also is quite flashy, well-groomed, loves jewelry, loves shiny things, loves bling, I guess you could say. Kind of like if you would think of this fish as kind of a rainbow fish. Absolutely gorgeous. And then the scythe shows someone with very, very sharp features. So she would have very precision type nose and very precision type chin, as well as the piercing blue eyes. And so basically she's quite mesmerizing in appearance. So now we would like to know if she can tell us what species of fairy she is, and we are going to use the last three cards here that we will lay. All right, so we have the garden, we have the moon, and we have the child. Okay, so we're wanting to know what species she is. The garden is telling me that she is someone who really likes being sociable, is very sociable. And she also enjoys entertaining or watching others entertain. Then we have the moon, which tells me she's sparkly and glowing and very much enjoys being in the limelight, which would go back to, being sociable and really enjoying being amongst people. And she is very childlike and playful and spontaneous. So, and I get the impression of flitting. She flits from one thing to another very quickly, as a child would. And I'm not saying that her attention span is very short, but it's like an urgency of so much to do and so much to explore. That's kind of the impression that it gives. So she's very mesmerizing in appearance with piercing blue eyes and sharp features, and she's very, very flashy and colorful, and she loves being sociable. She is sparkly and glowing and spontaneous, playful, childlike. So perhaps somebody can determine and put in the comments what type of fairy, what species of fairy you believe this might be. All right, so then we're asking the question, where do you live? So we're using the stork, the fish, and the child for this. And the stork is about changes. So that tells me that she doesn't stay put all the time. There's not any specific location that she really stays at for very long. It seems that according to the fish, it seems she goes wherever things are plentiful and where she can feel very free and unrestrained, as the fish would in the water. They can pretty much go wherever they want in a large body of water. And they also always need it to be someplace that is new and wondrous. So my guess is that they pretty much go, the way that it sounds, pretty much go to, let's say there's 10 fairy gardens in a neighborhood. I believe they would just go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Each time they go back, hopefully, somebody has added something new, so it's new and wondrous, and they don't have to feel restrained in any way. They're very free to go wherever they choose. But this is the prerequisite to perhaps where they call home. It changes all the time. So no specific place that we can tell here. And do you have a family? We'll use the bear, the fish, and the garden. And what we're seeing here, at first I thought maybe she had a husband, because this, even though it's not a face card or a king or queen or jack, this card is also considered a people card. But the more that I looked at these, the more I realized that her work brings her a family, because this would be a work card. This is a school, a school of fish, but just a school in general, and done in the community, always around other people. So I feel as though she's not necessarily married, but she is kind of married to her work, which has to do with a school and being outdoors, being amongst other people. And she's very, very solid in her work, very stable in her work, and really loves her work. So then, of course, the next question has to be, what work do you do? And we're using the stork, the snake, and the garden for that. And as we've talked about, the stork is about change and movement. nothing really stays the same, and she doesn't work in the same place every day. She doesn't go to a 9-to-5 job anywhere specific. She goes to many different places for her work. And it appears that she's a substitute teacher at times, but she also teaches, it's a certain kind of yoga called Kundalini. It opens up the spine, the chakras in the spine, from what I understand. I probably haven't explained that well enough, but anyway, Kundalini yoga. Look that up if you're curious. And she teaches to communities out in the open. So whether she's teaching school or she's teaching yoga, she's teaching in different communities, out in the open, out in nature, out where other fae hang out. Okay, so next question, and for the last one, we got quite a humorous response to the question of how old are you? And we're using the tree, the fish, and the moon. And from this, the tree, the fish, and the moon have been around for a long, long time. And my understanding from this fairy is for as long as those have been alive and around, she has been alive and around. And that's all we're going to get from that. They're quite evasive about the age, and it probably doesn't matter to them. So that's just a question from us. Next question, what do you eat? We're using the bear, the scythe, and the child. And when you look at the bear, she's telling us we eat berries, we eat roots, we eat fish, we eat plants. We eat grains that can be harvested, edible ones, which is what the scythe would be used for. And like a child, or most children, sweets. So when you hear that, if you want to attract the fae, put out honey and milk, cookies, cakes, that kind of thing. Well, she's saying, yes, that's one of the things that they do like to have, but they also have good food too. So then it's, what material are your homes made of? And we use the stork, the tree, and the bear. And this is pretty straightforward. It looks that she says their homes are made in trees, so obviously they would be made of wood. And they're up high, and they're very strong, very stable. That's the type of tree that they choose. But again, they move around a lot, so they would go from basically tree to tree, but maybe they do have a home base every now and then. Some place that they can all gather, because look at this tree. It's like the tree of life. There are many branches on this tree, and many fae could live in the high branches of this tree. They could make a community there too. Okay, and then I asked if they have currency, meaning money, or if they go by the trading system. And we're using the snake, the fish, and the scythe. And what she's saying here is that I don't think they ever decided that money was a good situation. Maybe they've watched us too much, because it's very manipulative, easy to manipulate people if they're held on by that kind of thing. And I say that because fish is also abundance, or money. So manipulative money was cut off. It was something that they just never considered doing, because I guess, they're very much aware of what our world is like and how money powers everything, it seems. And that is not the type of community that they wish to live in. And then I asked her, what do you do for fun? And we have the garden, the moon, and the child. So we have the enjoyment being that she loves to spend time with other people. she takes time to reflect and also time to play in the spotlight with these people. So I think they take turns entertaining one another in whatever way they do that, and also just taking time to play. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of serious in her life other than, her school, her work. And I don't think that's probably all that serious. She probably makes that extremely fun also. So the last thing for this reading is to find out if there is a specific message this fairy would like to share with us. And for that, we use the tree card, the moon card, the snake card, and the scythe. So with the tree, this is actually the tree of health, tree of life, tree of health, tree of well-being, whatever you'd like to say. You can call it anything you wish. You can call it any one of those. Now, if you think about it, health is defined as an absence of disease. And life is all about being able to grow and reproduce, be able to function in whatever way is needed. And well-being is the state of being comfortable, healthy, happy. This is a really awesome card. So in looking at this card, she might be asking us, so knowing this, how's your life going? Going back to her Kundalini yoga here and the lessons that I believe she teaches, she's telling us that if we are going to achieve true health, no matter what the situation is, we have to be balanced and we have to respect all aspects of what is needed to be balanced, okay? And this is actually where the word organic comes in, because organic references all the integral elements that make up a whole system. Okay, so this tree would not be able to survive if it didn't have roots. It would not be able to survive without water for very long. It would not be able to survive if another were feasting on it, okay? It would not be able to survive the wind, perhaps, if it was weak and had not had enough nutrients from the soil that holds it together, that holds it up. The roots take their nourishment from that. So there are many factors that make this tree healthy, and there are many factors that keep us healthy. Now, when we go down to the moon, right now she's saying the spotlight for that health appears to be on humanity. We're very unique. There are many things that, not just our body systems, okay, but us as a whole, body, mind, and spirit, make up humans. It's who we are. And she's saying that the spotlight is on that right now. Something is going on, and she's likening it to what is also going on Earth with the trees. There are so many wildfires right now, and many trees are being burned. There is a correlation between those trees and humanity. So let's see where she's going with this. Next is the snake. This is actually considered the card of the rival, and also one that, and that rival does not have to be human, okay? It could be, but it doesn't have to be. So we're also showing with this card that something is definitely not right, and this fairy is saying something is horribly wrong here. Humanity is being manipulated. Stories are being twisted and turned. There's a poison that is being put into our systems. Consider how a snake bites. They have very sharp fangs. She's saying there's something being put as though we're being bitten into our bodies that is extremely poison. This is a card of deceit, which means being tricked and misled. It is a card of betrayal, which is kind of like being stabbed in the back, but it can also be being delivered into enemy hands in a very treacherous way. So she's saying there's something not okay, and it has to do with the trees, and it has to do with humanity specifically, our trees and our well-being, the synchronicity between the burning and our health. And she's not hedging here. She's saying the spotlight is literally on humanity, and this is what's happening to humanity right now. The scythe, there's two sides to this. There is the blade side and there is the handle side. And the blade side is what is facing all of these cards. The blade side is the really bad side. This is one of the major warning cards in the deck. Okay, and she's pulled this out. Sometimes this blade indicates that this is the final straw, okay? The final straw before radical action has to be taken. She's telling us through this danger card that there is a major threat to our safety and our well-being and our species. And it has to do with all of the other things that she shared here, mostly over here. The manipulation, the poison, the twisted stories, those kinds of things. Something is trying to destroy, some major rival is trying to destroy humanity with the poison, with everything that can tear down the structure of life. So when all the trees are torn down, there's no oxygen other than the grass, perhaps. And there's not a lot of grass left either after all the wildfires. So there's a lot going on in the world right now. And she's letting us know that she is very much aware of this. Not necessarily the grandest message, if you're thinking about talking to a fairy, I suppose you want to have all goodness and light coming from them, but they are very concerned. And I get this from the Ask the Fairies readings that are done on Sundays. There's a lot of concern for humanity right now. They don't want to lose us, because if they lose us, who's going to offer fairy gardens and good food and sweets, right? And if the world is destroyed, they won't come to this earth any longer, because there won't be anything beautiful or fun or fantastic for them to visit. Okay, so there's one more thing that I wanted to try here. On my channel, I oftentimes have harped about fairy versus fairy, meaning F-A-E-R-I-E versus F-A-I-R-Y. And an F-A-I-R-Y fairy would be more like a Tinkerbell fairy. And the other way is more of basically any species. And that's what I like to pride my channel on, is that we are talking about any species when I spell fairy, F-A-E-R-I-E. So I wanted to ask this fairy that came through the door for us, because of the way that she described herself, it does remind me of a fairy like Tinkerbell, okay, as an example. F-A-I-R-Y. So I wanted to pull a card asking her if, in fact, she is a fairy like Tinkerbell. One that, would be very small, very fine in feature, and loving the bling, so sociable, so fun, and see whether or not that's the case. So I'm asking her to please give us a positive card, a card that's considered positive if she is in fact that kind of fairy. Thought that might be kind of fun because of how she described herself. So let's see what she has to say here. Is she or is she not a fairy? F-A-I-R-Y, kind of like Tinkerbell. We're going to cut the deck this time. I just have a feeling we need to. All right, let's see what we have. All right, so we have the bear. And the bear is considered a positive card. And also one of the main meanings is strong. So I'm going to take it as she's telling us that it's strongly possible, probable, that she is a fairy similar to Tinkerbell. So that's kind of neat. It was kind of neat to have that good of a description for her, that it gave me that idea that that might be who she was or the type of species that she is. So that is it for the reading of a fairy. I want to thank her for coming through the door and joining us for this reading. It's always fun. I just have a lot of fun finding out who they are and finding out things about them. I hope you're enjoying that too. So until next time, take care.